Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Empowerment Project podcast. I am Andrea Bosco.
And I'm Dr. Shar. Hey, everyone.
Thank you so much for being here again. So, for today's episode, it is one with Shar and I only, and we are going to talk about AI. So, AI, artificial intelligence. We had the pleasure of attending a conference not too long ago on AI, and it really opened our eyes to its potential and, for me anyway, kind of decreased my fears around AI. And for those of you who might be listening who may have some of the similar fears, I'll just share a little bit with you about kind of like what I knew about AI, and then we'll talk about what we learned. And we learned so much, and we also gained some really good strategies on how to use AI, how to eliminate a lot of that fear around it, how to embrace it, and even how to teach our kids how to use it in a more beneficial way. So that's what you're going to hear today, and we hope you will really take something away as much as we did. So basically, AI for me was a little bit of a daunting place. Not so much from a technological point of view, because I am quite tech savvy, but it was mainly from this idea of like, what is it actually doing? And where's this information coming from? And can we um, believe it? And this idea of like credibility around AI, and what is it going to take over, or is it going to take over? And this, and because you continue to hear, oh, robots are going to run the world one day, and we're going to lose jobs. And I mean, I think a lot of the narrative that I've been exposed to is how AI is actually detrimental to society, and it may be similar to what you're hearing. And even in the education space around how AI is causing students um, to plagiarize and to not do their own work, and it's making things too easy. They're not using their own intellect enough. So that was the kind of the narrative. Now, what I came out of this conference understanding a little bit better is how AI is not there to take over, but to supplement. And the more we fear it, the more we're going to be left behind, because it is inevitable. It's almost like when the dawn of the internet came about, and how everyone was like, I'm not doing this internet thing, and I'm just, I want that personal connection. And I'll never forget. So I started university in 97. And I'll never forget, in one of my first, um, like, not the lecture, what's beside other than, anyway, you have
Tutorial, the tutorial.
the tutorial. Thank
Yeah.
you.
It's been
So
that long, huh?
it was been that long, right? Um, so I remember in my tutorial, my TA said to us, okay, please write down your email address, because that's how we will be communicating in this course. And I was like, offended. I'm like, email? I didn't even have an email. My first email address was like Andrea Archero at like U of T dot something. I don't even know. It was like I actually needed to get an email address from my university. And I remember coming home and telling my mom, going, I can't believe they want email addresses now. Why can't they just pick up the phone and call us if they have something to say to us? Like, imagine, like, thinking about not using the
Yeah.
like emails. I mean, now I think emails is almost like from the Stone Age, right? It's like you
Mhm.
don't email, you text, or
Yeah.
you message through a various social media platforms. So that's sort of, I think, where a lot of our mindset is with AI now. It's like,
Mhm.
no, we can't use AI, because then it's gonna eliminate this critical thinking, this use of our brain, and we're very fearful. So I understand that. I believe it. But I think what you're going to hear from us today is hopefully going to um, quiet maybe some of those voices. I'm not saying completely take it away because I think we still need to be discerning, we still need to be cautious, but I think it will empower you a little bit more into maybe trying out some AI in your life and seeing how it works. So Shar, what did you think about AI before, and kind of how did you feel about it after?
Well, I kind of went in as a blank slate, like because I really didn't know anything about it. I refused to drink the Kool-Aid. And my the way that I equated AI was I equated it to social media. Okay, so you know that I just finished reading an amazing book by an author. His name is Jonathan Haidt, and his book is called The Anxious Generation. So he talks about, how technology has really caused some serious issues with especially the Gen X's, right? Because he was
Hmm.
specifically talking about a specific age group. It's not that it
The
hasn't
Gen
affected,
Zs.
sorry, Gen Z, sorry. Yes, it has affected the Gen Zs. Not that it hasn't affected the Gen X's and the millennials and all that kind of stuff, but specifically that targeted category. So my brain is automatically going to the science. My brain is automatically going into, okay, well, what's happening with these children's brains that are now being presented with AI and now making things so easy, and there's no critical thinking. We already know what social media does. It causes that they've lost executive function, and they're that fragmentation they call it. Is it cognitive fragmentation? I can't remember what the word is that he used, but how the kids are so distracted now and they can't stay on task,
Attention
and
fragmentation.
attention fragmentation. So for me, this is what I was going into AI with. I'm like, what are they going to tell me that's going to help me understand that this is a good thing? Like I need to learn, right? Because I have kids at home that are going to be using it. I hear about other companies using it. I hear about the fears that the teachers have. And again, for me, like I'm just thinking what's happening with our kids' brains. Like how are they being rewired? Are they using the critical thinking? Are they able to use their creative elements and put things together without being so dependent on someone else or something else spewing information at them? So okay, so basically what I'm saying is I went in with a little bit of fear and a little bit of like, I need to understand this, which is really what fear is, right? When you don't know, like when you
Hmm.
fear the unknown, it is like, if there's something out there, you don't know anything about, it is scary. So okay, so my takeaway was really big. And I especially loved what we learned on Tuesday, because when we were sharing with some of the teachers that we were speaking to on Wednesday, it started making a little bit more sense and how it can be applied into the education system. So my biggest takeaway was number one, using it as an additive versus a substitute, right? So you're not going into AI and saying, hey, guess what? Can you please write an essay for me on Macbeth? And just taking that and printing it and handing it in, right? Like, so that's not, that's what I thought a lot of people were doing, and maybe people are doing that, I don't know, and I'm sure there are maybe those few students that are like, I just need to get this done. But there are ways that teachers can start telling and start understanding that my student is not actually in this essay, right? Like my
Hmm.
student's actually not a part of this language. It's not even the kind of language that they use. So using as an additive instead of substitute. So in other words, give me some really good points on what I can talk about with Macbeth or with Shakespeare, whatever essay I'm doing, and then using that to be creative and build an essay. So the additive versus the substitute, right? So that was a really big takeaway for me. And then the other thing that was a really big takeaway, because remember, this presentation was actually designed for small to medium businesses and teaching them how to scale. So,
Hmm.
what I got from that is it can be a huge time saver. So, you
Hmm.
and I are always in that creative element. We're producing presentations. are one of the biggest hangups we've had with our presentations is that it's not offered in different languages, like especially French. When we talk to a lot of teachers and we go to a lot of schools and they're like, are you able to offer this presentation in French? And the answer is no. And it's always because we either A, have to hire someone to present it in French, or B, we have to say no to the business because we can't do that. But AI has the ability to help us translate our work so we can be a little bit more inclusive, which I thought was
Mhm.
great, right?
Mhm.
So that was another big thing. And then again, for me, like I asked so many different keynotes there and so many different people like on the panel to help understand what it's doing to our kids' brains. And again, my fear was, are our kids going to be able to develop that creative ability? And again, helping me understand that AI needs to be taught in school. Teachers need to know how to use AI in their classrooms. So kids are learning discernment. They're learning how to prompt GPT, chat GPT, or any of those other platforms. They're learning how to use it as an addition to some of the creative work that they've done. They're using it as a time saver so they can maybe spend more time on other skill sets. Like, so that's what I thought was so brilliant about what I learned. And then actually when we went to that school on Wednesday, the librarian was brilliant because she shared that idea. Do you remember the red light, orange light, green light?
Mhm.
Which I
Mhm.
thought was so good. So the concept was when teachers are able to tell their students, okay, guess what? The assignment that I'm giving you is a red light assignment, meaning that you're not able to use any chat GPT or any AI like that for this creative project. Okay, whether it's you're writing an essay or whatever, it's not
Well,
allowed. And
that it was gonna be in class only, and they
right
were
in class
because it's
only.
hard to avoid them using it if you're letting them go home to do it, because
You're
you
right.
just
So
can't monitor that. So as an in-class assignment,
right.
no AI, that's red light.
That's red light. And I
Yeah.
loved that. And then the orange light was, okay, I'm giving you an assignment. You can work on it in class, but you're also able to go home and use AI or one of those platforms to help supplement and have some additives to your final product. And then the green light, which I thought was so brilliant, was teaching them how to use AI, how to prompt it. Like if you really need a specific answer, because at the end of the day, let's be real. Like you said, AI is going to be showing up everywhere in our life. And we have to be on board and start learning with it, right?
Mhm.
We can't just bury our heads in the sand anymore because it's here and it's here to stay. But
Mhm.
can we find a way to use it in moderation and use it in a way that's going to um, help us build on a superpower? Like I love the way that Jim Harris used that word, like use it as a superpower, because he was so right. Um, as opposed to, not using it at all. But the green light was, let's learn how to use AI. Let's learn how to prompt it properly. Because the example that Jim gave, which I thought was amazing, was he said, if I type into ChatGPT, and I'm saying ChatGPT because that's probably the most common and well known, um, you know, tell me about Queens. If I type that into ChatGPT, ChatGPT doesn't know if you're talking about Queen's University. ChatGPT doesn't know if you're talking about the Queens of England. It doesn't know if you're talking about Queens, New York. Like,
Mhm.
so the thing is that learning how to prompt and ask proper questions and get granular so you're really getting the answer to what you are looking for. So again, for me, it was amazing. Such a well done presentation. Like I want to give like kudos to Integram for putting this together and all the sponsors, because they made it such a easy learning environment. And it invited questions from so many different industries, which was amazing, like real estate and construction, and like we're in the education sector. And our really good friend is works in the media industry, and then another one that has the one someone that was sitting at our table had a exercise company, like a fitness
Mhm.
company. So just again, learning how to use it in all these different industries was just phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. And um I loved I loved that red, yellow, green, or red, orange, green. And I
Yeah.
know in what the other thing she was saying about the green light was, you know, ask Chat GPT the question and then you give your feedback on their answer, right? Like, do you agree with it? Do you agree with the AI response?
Hmm.
Could you look at it in a different way?
Hmm.
And so practicing that critical thinking in that way, like almost playing, you know, with the AI response. So yeah, I think that's brilliant. The other thing that like I really got out of it is the ability to use AI as research
Hmm.
and obviously a massive, time saver, right? And I know I had a lot of questions because we were told there's over 20,000 AI apps out there right now. And my whole thing was, how do you know which ones to use? How do you know which ones are good? Which ones are not leaking your data? Because this is the other thing is that as we use AI, it collects not only the information from the algorithms and the bots making it, but also from what's being prompted,
Hmm.
right? And so it uses that information too. So in some cases, like let's say you want to put a presentation together and you upload like your personal information to a certain app, they essentially have ownership on that information and they could share it with anyone. So that's where you have to be cautious,
Yeah.
right? Is
No
sharing
personal information.
personal, passwords and data and names and all that stuff. So you need to be able to protect yourself because I don't know how close it is to cybersecurity. Now they did say stuff like Copilot, which is built into the Microsoft interface, if you have a membership, is very safe because it's built into their Microsoft software and it's extremely safe, so you can use private stuff there. um but other things you just have to be a little bit careful of, and that's why a lot of companies too, so a lot of virtual chat meetings like Zoom, Teams, they have built-in AI now where it will take meeting notes for you. Like you don't even have to take notes anymore on the meetings, and then what'll happen is the meeting notes will get sent and then they'll summarize the meeting notes for you, and then they'll create next steps. And so this is incredibly time efficient for so many companies, but there's companies out there that are like, we don't want AI to be knowing our private information that's happening on
Hmm.
these meetings.
Hmm.
So I get that. And that is up to the discretion of the companies. And I'm sure we're going to get to the point where the security around it is going to heighten, because I still think, even though artificial intelligence has been around since the 50s,
Hmm.
but we've obviously modernized it and we're getting it to a point of doing so much more. Like a computer system is a form of artificial intelligence, right? It's, you're able to type on a keyboard and then it shows up on the screen. Like it's a form of artificially creating that response in the computer motherboard and all that stuff. So it's been around for a long time, but to what we know it as now, in terms of like literally being a brain, like it could literally be a brain. Um, so I had all these questions about, but which ones do you use and how do you know? So I went up to ask the keynote. So Jim Harris was the keynote. If you guys want to look up his name, he is a leading thinker in the AI space. He speaks all over the world on the topic, and we were honored to have him there. And so I asked him, I said, Jim, like, how do I know which ones to use? And I said, for example, if, I want to make, say, a video from a PowerPoint slide, just to make it more enticing for students to watch instead of just a static slide. How do I make like a video? And he's like, well, use ChatGPT. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, type in what are the best AI apps to create this to this. And then it'll give you a list. And then from there, you could say, okay, which one of these apps have the highest market share? Meaning, which ones have the most use? Because the people that are using them, like the apps the most, generally have more credibility because they have more users, they have more data on the users. And then you can filter it even further down on which of these apps cost money, which of them have a free version. Because of course, especially for our purposes, if we're just experimenting and playing around with certain things, we don't want to be investing a lot of money until we find one that we really like and we want to use.
Mhm.
So using it in that space, because otherwise I got to go on to Google and I got to search, and then I got to do my own kind of research, even creating like spreadsheets and okay, this app does this. And so the amount of time saving is unbelievable. And then from, like, let's just say up on a personal level, and we were just talking to actually Christina about this today. She's planning a trip in the summer with her family, and she wanted an itinerary. She wanted an itinerary for her trip. And so she went into ChatGPT and she said, I have a family with, and she wrote like her boys and their ages, and we are going here. I want an hourly schedule on going here, right? And it just spewed out, including restaurants, including where to start and where to finish. So it's a theme park. She's going to a theme park, and it was like which theme park to start at, where to go for lunch, and then where to go next, how to get early entry into that part of the theme park, the cost to do so. So I mean, imagine how much time that would have taken her or any of us to do on our own,
Mhm.
right? And she goes, I would have just gone on Instagram Reels or TikTok and tried to search up, families that have gone here and then done my own research, which is not a bad thing to do. But again, imagine the time saving, and then the detail, the level of detail that the AI can give her, like hour by hour, and even the restaurant choices. And then that's when I said to her, even just having that outline, then you can do your own research. Like then you could say, okay, let me look up the menu on this restaurant. Is it something my kids are going to enjoy and that I'm going to enjoy? Okay, great. Let me look up, this. And then she can, but at least you have the framework,
Mhm.
which is just amazing.
So
And then yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I loved when we were learning about Otter. So do you remember this? Like, okay, so
Yes. So
this
yeah,
is
let's
where,
talk about it in the education space.
yeah, which I think is really cool because again, right, we're not talking about substituting, we're talking about adding. Like, how can I
Yeah.
make this an additive to my education? And I know that this can be used as a personal tutor even for a lot of kids. Like I know that we talked about kids that are autistic or have ADHD, and how AI can be used to generate lessons to help kids. Like it was, so Jim was talking a lot about that. And then this the Otter, he talked about in a university space. So what he was basically saying was Otter is an AI platform, and it records. Sorry, I don't know if it's an AI platform, but it records.
Yeah.
You can take it to class. You can take it to class, and you can record your professor's lesson. And then, when you come home and you're like, okay, here's the professor's lesson, word for word. But then you find that there was a 5-minute block when he was talking about, or she was talking about, this particular topic, which I'm not too clear about. You could use the AI platform to take out that paragraph and put it back into the system and say, can you please explain this paragraph to me as if you were explaining it to a 7-year-old? So it takes whatever the professor said and it dumbs it down, not dumbs it down, I shouldn't say that word, sorry, that's not appropriate, but it basically simplifies whatever the professor said to how it could be explained to a 7-year-old. And then you could change it, say, okay, now explain it to me like I was 15. Now explain it to me like I'm 21. And you can actually go through that learning. Like, so all of a sudden, whatever that professor was just talking about has now been explained to you from a building blocks perspective. And
Hmm.
now your understanding of that information is so much better. So, like, what a brilliant tool. Like, can you imagine having something like that when you were in university?
Oh
Okay,
my
I know it
gosh.
was email for you.
I
Email was introduced to me when I was in chiropractic college. So I know that it was like fascinating when I first set up my my first email. But
your first email.
yeah,
Yeah.
but can you imagine having that?
Yeah. Well, the notes that I had, and I remember I had some early morning lectures that I'd have to be up at like 5 because I commuted to the campus, and I lived like north of the city and I had to get down to the city, and I would fall asleep. I would literally have notes and I'd start a word and all of a sudden there'd be like a line and I'm like, oh, and so when I'm going back to study, I'm like, wonder what I was trying to write there because I was actually falling asleep in my class. So I mean, massive tool, like, and even to summarize the notes, like it'll summarize the notes for you. You can, yeah, pull out those areas, have them describe it better. And yeah, just imagine the level of understanding that you could get from the information,
Hmm.
versus just having that like one time, like, and I know, listen, recording professor notes has been around for a long time, even just bringing in a little device,
Yeah.
because those were kind of starting at the end of my kind of university career, was bringing in like just an audio recorder, but that's still a lot of time. You got to go back, you got to re-listen to it, make notes, like it's like you're going to the class like another time, and who
Mhm,
wants to do that?
mhm,
Right, it's like you've
mhm,
been there once, now
mhm,
let's just get the basics of what we're learning. And so that's incredible for that level of education. And then what I'm seeing it being used now in the high school setting, so my daughter's in high school, and she had a science test last week, and what she did was she put all her science notes along with the test review into AI,
mhm,
and then she said, create a sample test for me based on this information. And it created a test for her. She did that test. She was able to get a mark on that test. She was able to see what she did wrong on that test and then redo the test and get a better mark on it. And so, like, I thought that was brilliant. Like, I thought that was absolutely brilliant
mhm,
in terms of using it to study, using it as a way to give you, because a lot of students have test anxiety.
mhm,
And you sit down, you get the test and you freak out and you blank. So how great would it be if you can kind of do the test a few times before you sat down? Now, obviously, it's not going to be the exact same test that your teacher gives you, but based on the notes that you have and based on their review, it's not going to be that far off.
mhm,
So that's huge. And even, she's doing Shakespeare, and let's face it, Shakespeare is not an easy language to follow. And so she's also using it to help her understand Shakespeare, pulling out certain sonnets and putting it in chat GPT. Explain this to me in plain English. Explain this to me like, I'm in grade 5 or whatever. and then creating little games. She was playing like a Jeopardy game on actually Macbeth, to help her understand the concepts in the story. So to me, that's like amazing. And it's exactly how I would love to hear these students using
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
to enhance, like you said, to substitute, to create a superpower, to enhance, but not to take over. Because at the end of the day, they're going to need to go into class
Mhm.
and write an in person exam, essay, whatever it is. So if they're relying solely on chat or on AI, then it's going to reflect when they show up to the test,
Yeah.
right? So building those skills with AI to strengthen when they do go in person
Yeah,
is,
and you said substitute when I know you meant supplement. You were just saying, but
sorry, I meant, yes,
yeah,
sorry,
supplement. Yeah.
supplement instead of substitute.
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, everybody is responsible for their own learning. Like everyone has to be accountable for understanding this platform because it is here to stay and it is going to be evolving. And the only way that we can really understand how to use it to our advantage is by learning and trying to do as
Mhm.
much learning as possible, whether you're watching a YouTube video or going to one of these seminars or whatever it is. It's and especially in the education sector, because if we don't teach kids how to use it properly, then it will be abused. I kind of feel like that about social media. Like we were not taught how to use it responsibly, and we kind of let our kids take that platform and run with it. And we have an epidemic now, right? Like
Mhm.
we're dealing with a very like anxious generation, the way that Jonathan Haidt said it. And so I think we have to be responsible users and learners and teachers where this is concerned.
Exactly. And the more we run from it or stick our head in the sand and hope it'll just go away,
Yeah,
the worse it's going to be for us.
exactly.
And, we talk so much about self empowerment, self awareness, and how it starts with us,
Hmm.
right? So that's why we felt this topic was so important to touch upon and to hopefully maybe ignite some fire in you to do some of your own playing around. It definitely has for me. When I tell you, I never even opened Chat GPT until this week.
Hmm.
Like I had it on my phone because somebody I think told me to download it, but I never used it.
Hmm.
And since like just a few days, I've been opening it up, playing around with it. The prompting is really key, as Shar was saying. Like you can't just be vague in your questioning. Learning how to properly ask the questions is really important. Put as much detail as you can. And then just having some fun with it and then sitting down with your kids if you have children, especially those that are adolescents and into high school. How are you using it?
Yeah.
Have you tried this? What are you using it for? And having those open conversations, and then it won't be as fearful. And
Yeah.
I think that's really the thing that happens most is we fear the unknown. And when we start to know it, we get a lot more confident and less fearful.
Yeah. And I think you said it perfectly is like when we know and when we have these conversations, it becomes such a great opportunity for everybody to learn. And remember, when we're afraid of something, we try to control. But
Yes.
if we learn, we can connect, which I think is really cool.
Exactly. Yes. So, on that note, thank you all so much for listening. We hope you've learned something today. Let us know and even let us know how you're using AI. I know we have a lot of educators that listen to our podcast, and we'd love to know how you're using it in your classrooms with your students. And yeah, keep the conversation going online. You know where to find us, the Empowerment Project 2 on Instagram. Reach out via our Spotify page or whatever. You know where to find us. But thank you so much. Make sure you continue to follow and like our podcast. If there's anything else you want us to talk about, let us know. And thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.
Bye for now.